reported missing.
43 doesn't seem possible. Find the pack of wolves preying on our children. Slaughter them all. Marshals.
What if everything Kayce believed about Tom was a lie? What if the man he trusted the most was actually the person responsible for all the chaos surrounding his family? And what if the one person capable of helping him uncover the truth was none other than Rip Wheeler? Well, if the latest rumors surrounding Marshals Season 2 are true, then we could be heading toward the most dangerous chapter of Kayce's life. Because after everything that happened in the season finale, there is one question that fans cannot stop asking. What happens when Kayce finally learns who Tom really is? Will he try to bring him to justice? Will he cut him out of his life forever? Or could things become so personal that Rip ends up helping Kayce do something much darker? And honestly, the more I think about it, the more convinced I become that Season 2 is setting up a war that nobody will be able to stop. A war built on betrayal, lies, revenge, and secrets that have been hidden for far too long. So let's break down everything that could happen. First of all, I want to start with Tom. Because honestly, everything in Season 2 seems to revolve around him. As you guys know, Tom spent most of Season 1 presenting himself as someone Kayce could trust. Every time Kayce was struggling, Tom seemed to be there. Every time things became difficult, Tom always had advice. And because Kayce was dealing with grief, loss, and more pressure than ever before, he slowly started letting his guard down around Tom. But the finale completely changed the way many fans look at this character. Because by the end of the season, there were simply too many clues pointing in one direction. The attacks. The suspicious timing. The people connected to Tom. The strange behavior from his ranch foreman. None of it looked like a coincidence anymore. And honestly, that final scene may have revealed more than Tom ever intended. Because when his foreman reported back and said that everything had been handled, it immediately made fans
wonder whether Tom had been pulling the strings from the very beginning. If that turns out to be true, then Kayce is about to face one of the most painful betrayals of his entire life. And the worst part is that Tom did not just earn Kayce's trust. He earned Tate's trust as well. That is what makes this situation so dangerous. Because when someone betrays you, it hurts. But when they betray your family too, it becomes personal. And honestly, I do not think Kayce is the type of person who simply forgives something like that. Now let's talk about the biggest rumor surrounding Season 2. Rip Wheeler. Because there is no way fans have stopped talking about this possibility. Ever since Tate headed toward Texas, viewers have been hoping that Beth and Rip would somehow become involved in the story. And honestly, it makes perfect sense. Out of all the people in the Yellowstone universe, Rip might be the one person who can immediately see through someone like Tom. Rip has spent years protecting the people he cares about. He knows exactly how manipulators operate. He knows exactly how dangerous they can become. And most importantly, Rip is not the kind of man who waits around while innocent people get hurt. If he discovers what Tom has really been doing behind the scenes, I honestly think things could get ugly very quickly. Imagine Rip learning that someone has been targeting Kayce. Imagine Rip finding out that Tate was put in danger. Imagine him discovering that the attacks, the lies, and the betrayals all lead back to Tom. At that point, I do not think Rip would stay quiet. And honestly, that is exactly why Tom should be worried. Because Kayce is many things, but he still tries to do the right thing. Rip, on the other hand, has never been afraid to handle problems in a much more direct way. And if these two men end up working together, Tom may finally realize that he has made a very serious mistake. The question is not whether Rip can help Kayce expose Tom. The real question is what happens after the truth comes out. Because once secrets stop being secrets, people start making choices. And some of those choices can change everything forever. But honestly, I do not think Rip is the only person who is going to cause problems for Tom in Season 2. Because there is another character who may end up becoming even more dangerous. And that character is Andrea. As you guys know, Andrea left for DC at the end of season 1. On the surface, it looked like she was moving on. It looked like she was putting Montana behind her and focusing on her future. But honestly, I never believed that was the end of her story. In fact, the way she said goodbye to Kayce made it feel like there was still something unfinished between them. You could tell she did not want to leave. You could tell she was struggling with the decision. And most importantly, you could tell she was not ready to walk away from Kayce. That is exactly why I think Andrea's return is only a matter of time. And when she comes back, she may bring information that changes everything. Because let's be honest, Andrea was one of the few people actively investigating the attacks. She was asking questions. She was connecting dots. She was looking into people that nobody else seemed interested in investigating. And if she continued doing that while she was in DC, there is a very good chance she uncovered something huge. Something that could finally expose Tom once and for all. Personally, I think Andrea is eventually going to discover evidence that directly links Tom to everything that happened in season 1. And if that happens, Kayce is going to find himself in an impossible position. Because on one side, there is Tom, a man he trusted. A man who supported him when he needed help. A man who somehow became part of his inner circle. But on the other side, there is Andrea, someone who has consistently tried to protect him and tell him the truth. And honestly, I think that conflict is going to become one of the biggest storylines of the entire season. Because trust is not something that can be repaired overnight. Once Kayce realizes he has been manipulated, he is going to start questioning everything. Every conversation. Every promise. Every moment he spent believing Tom was his friend. And honestly, I cannot even imagine how angry he is going to be when the full truth finally comes out. At the same time, I also think season 2 is going to push Kayce to his emotional limit. Because if there is one thing we have learned about him, it is that he always tries to carry everything by himself. He tries to protect everyone around him. He tries to solve every problem. He tries to stay strong no matter how difficult things become. But eventually, everyone reaches a breaking point. And I think Kayce is getting closer and closer to his. Think about everything he has already been through. The loss. The violence. The constant pressure. The responsibility of protecting Tate. The uncertainty surrounding the ranch. The betrayals. The attacks. It just never seems to end. Every time he thinks things are finally improving, another problem appears. Another enemy emerges. Another crisis begins. And honestly, that kind of pressure changes people. That is why I believe season 2 could show us a completely different version of Kayce. A version that is more aggressive, more determined, more willing to take risks. Because when people are pushed far enough, they stop worrying about consequences. And if Tom really is responsible for everything, Kayce may decide that simply exposing him is not enough. He may want revenge. Now obviously, that does not mean Kayce is suddenly going to become reckless. But I do think we are going to see a side of him that has been building beneath the surface for a long time. A side driven by anger rather than patience. A side driven by justice rather than forgiveness.